Bill?
Let's see. I need one without the arms.
Oh, you want this one?
And I'll take this one. Perfect.
You got too much around your waist, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Not like me, I have too much around my waist.
All right, Will, we are all set.
Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Friday, January 27th, 2023 Open Space and Rec Plan Ad Hoc Committee for the Town of Yarmouth. This is to formally advise that as required by MGL Chapter 30A, squiggle, squiggle, 1825, and pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, and an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations signed into law July 16, 2022, the OSRP Ad Hoc Committee will hold a public meeting at the date and time noticed on the notice of meeting. Public is welcome to attend either in person or via alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. So let's take attendance. We'll start with the committee itself. Here we go. Steve Szanski.
Here.
Christine Marzigliano.
Here.
Gail Charette.
Here,
Ellie Lawrence.
present.
Will Rubenstein here. If some other folks will start at the physical table, if some other folks could please identify their name and title, I'd appreciate it.
Kathy Williams, Town Planner.
Brittany D'Arienzo, Conservation Administrator. Amy Howell, Rec Director.
Anthony Bennett, Assistant Rec Director.
Bill Benetti, Natural Resource Director.
Whoa,
That's it.
that's certainly enough people. I would say that for Amy and the other folks, your audio is not great, probably because you're not as close to the microphone as everybody in the back half of the frame. So just keep that in mind if you're contributing throughout this meeting. Thank you. My virtual friends, can you please introduce yourself and where you work?
Cassie, Bethany, Weston, and Sampson.
Lauren Shunk, Weston and Sampson.
Nate Wetton, Town of Yarmouth, DPW.
Great, thanks. Nate, welcome. I don't think we've seen you here before.
Thank you, I'm new.
So goodness knows what we're about to get ourselves into. All right. We are here today to talk about the open space and rec plan. Specifically, we're going to emphasize a couple things. One is to prepare ourselves for the February 8th, 2023 open house public input meeting. We're also going to talk about site visits. You know, we're going to hit those minutes. And then at the end, we're going to talk about where we're going from here. So Kathy, can I start with you as we talk about the preparations for February 8th, or do you want to talk about site visits? What's the priority in your opinion?
I think the priority is the meeting on February 8th. I think we need in your packet, I did include the agenda from last time, although I think we were kind of switching it up a little bit. And then also a really kind of rough draft of what could be included in the PowerPoint presentation. And then also Weston Sampson had identified some goals and questions for the different topic tables that we're talking about. I guess my only real question about some of this is how we are going to be working this as a hybrid meeting. And maybe as we have our discussions and Cassie and Lauren go through their information, we can think about it. So I'm kind of thinking the first thing we want to do is maybe give that presentation so hybrid people can be participating. It can kind of serve as a kickoff so people understand what the open space and rec plan does and why we're updating it. And then either we can try and ask some of these questions that are going to be asked at the table of the remote hybrid users, or we can say, we can end the hybrid meeting at that point and say, now people in person are going to be going into individual tables and talking about things in more detail. We had a meeting on Wednesday for the Station Avenue corridor study, which went very well, where they gave the presentation. They asked some general questions of anybody who was hybrid. Some people in the audience also spoke at that time. And then after that, we ended the hybrid meeting, and everyone kind of came up around 3 tables that we had set up and offered some additional input that way. So as we're talking about this, maybe think about how we want to run the meeting and how much involvement we want from the people on the hybrid. So
Kathy, yeah. I would just like to jump in there and say I did attend the corridor study meeting on Wednesday night virtually, and it is exactly the right format. You educate everybody, whether they're there in person or virtually. And then unfortunately, for those that can't be there in person, the meeting's over. And then the people who are there in person get to do all the in-person things. It's not perfect. It's not It's not ideal, but it is the best format. So in essence, what you're saying is we would maybe flip what's on this open house agenda, where instead of starting with gallery walk and topical stations, it would actually be starting with formal presentation. So just to kind of,
Yes, that's my
Summary.
recommendation. The only difference at the Station Avenue is
Thank you, Cass.
they had, it's a smaller area. They had a more simple list of 3 questions that they were asking for, you know, what do you like, what are your issues, and what are the opportunities? So it was easier to address, but we did solicit some input from remote participants on those questions. Nobody really had anything. Chief Lennon had a comment, but most of the comments came from the people actually in the meeting while we were actually had the hybrid part of it. So people hybrid heard the comments, which were some really great comments, I thought.
Yes.
And then there was a lot more information gathered at the tables afterwards.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was great to give virtual folks the chance to give their input in real time and then to politely say, show's over. We're only going to focus on the people there that are live. So anyway, I'll let you continue on, Kathy. I just wanted to piggyback on my experience on Wednesday night in relation to what we're discussing.
Yeah, agreed. So I think we'll just hand it over to Cassie and Lauren, and they can maybe talk a little bit about the information that they're going to be presenting in the formal presentation. I'm not sure. I mean, we just got the links. I mean, we had to have it all, the survey converted. There's some copies here of the final one. I haven't advertised any of this because I wanted to advertise the survey and the meeting at the same time, and I wanted to be sure I was clear on the format for the meeting and what time it was going to be starting, and that the presentation was happening first before I advertise that. So we're probably not going to start that survey until advertising it till next week. So I'm not sure how much information we're going to really have heard from the survey itself, but I think, and I included some stuff from the visioning. We've already heard a lot of information from people on open space and recreation as part of the visioning plan. So maybe that's kind of what we're talking to people about. And I had sent that brief little summary of some of the survey results to Cassie and Lauren too. So they have that little form there. So hand it off to you guys.
Okay, great, thank you. I think the switching, can you hear me all?
Yeah.
I think the switching of the order is totally fine and great, and we'll make that adjustment to the agenda. We were talking, just Lauren and I, earlier in the week, and we were thinking about some successful ways to engage at the start of the meeting. One thing that Lauren mentioned to me that I thought was interesting was she had like in another OSRP update meeting, she had a prompt at the registration table, just like a fun prompt to say, what's your favorite park and why? And like a board, and people can write their just a one, you know, what's your favorite park, and just write it down, and you could have dots. That might just be a fun way to engage at the beginning of the meeting. So just food for thought there. And we just want people to interact and provide feedback in whatever way is comfortable for them. So if you found success this way, then we'll go with that. So I think for this, then we would likely we'll have our formal presentation and then our Q&A, as you mentioned, and then we'll just end with the gallery walk. And we're imagining that the gallery walk is not like a breakout room with chairs and like that people are sitting and there's like a second presentation at the tables, but it's just more of like all of us are going to be facilitators at the table, and people can provide feedback in the way so they could have one-on-one conversations. You can use the questions that we'll talk about as fodder for discussion, or they can write in note cards or what have you. So we'll get into that in a minute. And according to the list in this packet, I think the next thing that we'll talk about is just really kind of a high level overview of slides that we're starting to draft up. Lauren will go through just very briefly the parts and pieces of those, and then we'll hear what y'all think on that.
So do you want, just to clarify, just to make this meeting effective with this many humans, can people interject after Lauren presents a single slide? I think that would be better than waiting to go through the whole thing and then going back. Is that okay?
That's totally fine.
Lauren, prepare yourself. Okay.
I guess I would just say if we're gonna have a hybrid, maybe open house implies it's only in person, so maybe we just want it to be a workshop.
Okay. So we'll adjust the agenda. Well, actually, not this agenda. We'll likely need to shift around some slides to follow the order of the meeting. Lauren, do you want to take it away?
Sounds good. So we'll start off with the agenda here, just a little bit about what we're going to be presenting. So we've got project background, what we've heard so far, mapping and analysis, opportunities that touch on some of what we saw at our site assessments. And then we'll open it up to next steps and then the public comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lauren, your voice is fading in and out. Sometimes we can hear you perfectly and then otherwise not.
Okay, I'll try to talk a little closer. Is this better?
That's
Yes.
better, thank you.
Okay.
Wrapping off helps.
So project background. So these next couple slides will introduce the project team and give everyone a chance to introduce themselves.
Can we just go back? I'm sorry, were we interjecting at each slide? Because I
Yes.
think Amy's going to be gone and I think Anthony's going to be, who's the Assistant Recreation Director, is going to be taking over. And I believe Bill is no longer acting, but is actually the full-fledged director.
Correct, thank you, Kathy.
I also believe Anthony is going to be acting director, but once that happens, we can send you guys that. so.
Okay, that's awesome. Congratulations.
And we'll give an overall timeline of the project, kind of situate where we're at.
And
We'll
for
call
any
out
where the text is super small, we're gonna adjust that. We just wanted to get the slides roughed out. So this slide is tiny, and then you'll see some mapping where the legends are very tiny. So we'll adjust those. Just want to
You
make
want to
note.
change the workshop too, with the public. meeting?
Yeah, I think she said that throughout she'll be changing it to a workshop instead of an open house.
Can I ask a
Public
clarification?
meeting is fine. I mean, it's a public meeting, that's fine.
Just a quick clarification, Cassie. Is the second public meeting contemplated for the end of March?
I don't think we've said that, and that's a good point. Maybe we just say TBD and not have it starred.
Because when I saw that, because there's a lot going on in this slide, but I did figure it out and I liked it. I just wanted to make sure we weren't committing to that. And the last question I had was just as more of a reminder, because it's been a while, is the presentation to boards and commissions. Is that a requirement or is it a nice to? And what are they? Who are we presenting to?
So we'll submit our draft report to the state and they review. And then typically during the time that Melissa Cryan is reviewing the OSRP, that's when we'll bring it to the appropriate board or commission within town to get their blessing. I think we included one. So if there's like, I don't know the structure, like select board offhand within town, like that would be the appropriate forum to bring this to and just gain input. It's a public meeting, like that sort of thing. And then hopefully we'll have comments in town and state aligning up so that we can finalize the report thereafter.
Are
Thank
we
you.
obligated to get support letters from certain agencies, like certain people in town?
We are. Yeah, that's a great point, Kathy. Thank you. That in the final document, we'll have a backup of support letters.
So does that mean that given the composition of this group, that you would send it to the planning board and the recreation commission, et cetera, basically all the places that this board is constituted from, as well as town departments? Or is that crazy?
I'd like to think town departments are contributing as the draft is being developed, but they can certainly comment on it
But,
if
but,
they
oh,
feel
oh,
further comments needed.
so the Rec Commission, Planning Board, Open Space Committee, Disability Commission, and Conservation Commission, we would like to have letters from?
I think what will end up happening is Weston and Sampson isn't going to be able to do all of those presentations to different committees. And typically what happens is I do them, staff does them in order to kind of just present where we are. It's pretty simple presentation and just be consistent with what Weston and Sampson was giving elsewhere. I think there's a one or two that you do need to give. But certainly staff would be doing some of those.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to bring this up now so that we could all be looking ahead on the various committees and commissions that we serve on, that's coming down the road in a few months. Thank you.
Good point. I would also say that we had talked about the second meeting and we had talked about March 22nd or March 29th, because those are Wednesdays when the hearing room is also free again. I know. So.
Okay.
And with that,
I don't know whether that still works or not. If we've delayed too much on the first meeting and that's too soon, please let us know. But we had talked about those dates.
and Kathy, sorry to go backwards again, but how would that meeting differ from the first one?
I think you'd be presenting different information. I'd like to think that from the first survey and the
Okay.
public meeting, we'll be able to come up with the ideas of the goals and maybe start looking at action items. And then that's what would be vetted through the public, because that's the real meat and potatoes of the open space and rec plans. How are you going to meet all these goals that you've identified?
Got it. So so Kathy, can I ask you to, since we need to keep moving on this, could we maybe talk towards the end of this meeting and get the pulse of the room about what we think about the potential date for the second meeting?
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Cassie and Lauren.
So these next couple of slides, we're talking a little bit about the OSRP itself and giving a little background. So we'll talk through why update the OSRP,
Yeah.
give folks of why it's important.
Should like,
Excellent.
Then we'll introduce the elements of the plan. So this lists out the different sections in the OSRP. Noting all of them will be updated, but the ones that are starred are the ones that are requiring most of the public input. So the public input will have a really big direct impact on those sections.
So can I ask, is the survey in the first meeting really dealing with 6 and 7 and kind of giving us some ideas for development of the next two? So what's the first, is this first meeting and survey dealing with 6 and 7 mostly, or all of them?
Yeah, I
the-
think that's more 6 and 7. I mean, the next meeting, I think, as you noted, the goals and objectives and 7-year action plan will come kind of out about what we find out from the survey, and it'll be more vetted and discussed at the second public meeting.
So really the first 6, 7, and 8, maybe we'll get some input on.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Is there a need to mark that up in a way that clarifies? Or is it just FYI?
I think you should just state it in the presentation that tonight we're really going to be emphasizing on the vision, analysis of needs and goals and objectives.
Okay.
So getting into what we've heard so far, we have a placeholder slide. I think we talked about this a little bit. Kathy, I know you had sent something out about the vision plan, so we can update it to reflect that.
And I don't know what, you just take up the online survey. And then I don't know whether this is anything you might, maybe you talk about it later, but maybe what you've learned maybe from some of the site visits, or is that later?
That's coming next.
Thank
So, Yep. So we'll get into the next couple of slides here. First, we'll talk about some of the mapping. So the maps in here are the ones that we think most directly kind of relate to the public input session. So they're not every single map, but yet we'll adjust the text size and so that they're a little bit more legible.
Lauren, on your maps, you're showing Sen Pond and it should be Swan Pond on each of the maps. It's the lower pond.
Actually, it goes by both.
It goes by both, yeah.
Hmm?
It goes by both.
Names.
Does it?
I call it Swan, but I see it saying all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, people
It's like
that look
Stage
at-
Island and Marsh Island, they're interchangeable.
It's like Run Pond and Crow Pond. No one knows what Crow Pond is, but that's what's
Where's
on
that?
maps.
Yeah.
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 It's in the GIS then. It's
I
in
think it should be
ponds.
what people
Yeah. I believe it is
recognize.
a GIS because
perhaps.
when they go to look it up, it's there. Common, it's our common town name. for it,
Swan-
Like
so-
Smuggler's Beach.
That's actually
Like Bass
official.
River Beach.
No, it's officially Smugglers now. The Board of Selectmen
know,
decided.
I know.
Nice.
I know, but it's always gonna be Lighthouse Beach to me.
So are we gonna change saying to? Are we gonna change saying to Swan?
No.
No, leave it? Okay.
It's in all the maps.
Yeah,
So you were
it's,
outvoted.
it's all base information in Mass GIS.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, as a reference, we might want to just keep it as is.
Yeah, because when you go to look it up, I'm
Can I
not.
cut in here for a second
Then
before we
you'll
go to
be
the
able
next
to
slide?
Mm.
Kathy, I had mentioned this to you and I apologize for not commenting earlier, but it's really just grown legs now.
The way to
Some
water.
of you in the room know that I've been working on something with the town waste of water that's kind of morphed into doing a town-wide assessment. And in that case, part of that assessment would generate maps like this just pertaining to town ways and boat ramps. So I don't think like on this graphic, we need to indicate town ways, but maybe refer to appending.
I think this is a good thing. There's lots of things that are coming up, like the
Yeah.
analysis of the different recreation facilities, that
Yeah.
study that's being done, that would be part of an action item. Ultimately, as well as the action item of, evaluating all of our ways to water and identifying what improvements need to happen there. Those are studies that are underway, so it's great to incorporate that into the open space and rec land and give them some extra oomph.
Yeah, I just don't know where to insert it, but like I said, it's not just an assessment of. What I'm proposing is to come up with something like this for the town ways, so an
Maps.
interactive map, people can get online and see,
Great.
so identifying them all and then, yes, assessing them for improvements.
Yes.
But identifying what amenities are there, the parking and
Yes.
all that, okay, yeah,
Yes.
that would be great.
Lauren, do you want to continue?
Yep. So we've got water resources, calling out the flood hazards, water bodies, wetlands. And I think we can kind of keep flipping through. Zoning. We might want to clarify, and we'll adjust kind of the text and the legend more to clarify maybe what the zoning means.
Christine, Christine was wondering, like, she didn't know what the zoning types meant.
Mhm.
So maybe, obviously the Bs are all business, the Rs are all residential, but,
What's the 24, 25 and 40
Yeah,
and
I
7
mean,
and
what's the
RS
difference
40?
between?
it's
25 and-
it's the minimum lot size.
Right, oh, okay.
So
we
for
could-
all of the mapping slides, I think it'll be like a 1 sentence summary, like what's the nugget that we're pulling out of this as it relates to the OSRP, and just sharing out, that's how we would speak to each of these in the presentation. Like
So
we're seeing, largely residential with, business cores along, these corridors, what have you. It's nothing new that people won't know who are coming to this meeting, but at least it just sets the framework up on what are all the parts and pieces that we consider as part of the OSRP.
Sounds good.
Like B1 seems to be agricultural business. That's where the cranberry bogs are. Is that correct?
No, B1 is around Station Avenue at Old Exit 8. It's that purple.
I'm talking about Placious Ponds.
Yeah.
That's
Where the
municipal. So maybe the
purple is?
color between municipal are you having difficulty telling that that's municipally owned? It's just a municipal zoning district.
Yeah, that's not quite
Darker.
purple. That's like a brown. That's MU.
Darker.
Yeah, that's MU.
Oh,
That's
it's a
like
brown.
brown.
Okay.
Yeah.
My old eyes.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. At first look, unless you look
Yeah.
closer at it, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe a slightly different color for municipal.
Thank you.
For all our old eyes.
Now, in the water resources, is that where you put in the town wastewater and stuff like that? That would not be a bad place for it.
We actually have, there's a layer for ways to water. It's just literally a red line in our GIS that shows where they are. I mean, we could certainly include what we have
Okay.
to date in a map. Because I mean, that was one of the things that people were very interested in, is more access to the water in the visioning. So,
Yeah.
so maybe that's something that we could work up a map.
Yeah, I'd like
related
to see, I was gonna call Bruce Barrows anyway, because we have something that I wonder if he was the one that initially did it for Carl and. I don't-
He might have.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you can incorporate, yeah, perfect. If you have any issues with that, you can just talk to Bruce, because I do know there is a layer. Thank you.
Okay, so jumping over to land use. Showing a lot of forest here, areas where there's water bodies. We can call out some areas where we have commercial and residential pockets.
That actually makes Yarmouth not look that bad.
Smaller you make it, the better it
We're
looks. right?
very, right, we're
So
very
green.
there. So you're counting everyone's lawn as green, right? Not mine.
No, I gotta take 5 yards. That's
I do
brown.
too.
I don't have to.
Yeah, agreed.
I've seen more zoning versus land use maps that are more different. So this is actually like following zoning to some degree. I've seen land use maps that are just completely not what the zoning map is saying. So it's interesting to see the comparison.
I just think once you add in everyone's lawns, we're greener than people might think. And that's what
because
that's
I use
reflecting.
the sprinklers.
If you use your sprinklers, but we're not encouraging that.
All right.
So core habitat and critical natural landscape. This is calling out the different core habitats.
This map kind of, because you're showing the core habitat, Dennis Pond is missing because it's a core habitat area, but I don't know how you would show both, you know. Dennis Pond is just below the railroad tracks on the left.
those are areas.
So you have the pond with the core habitat in the pond and around the pond. But I think
The pond isn't even blue. is it?
somehow we
Am I looking
should
at the right place?
show that Dennis Pond is there.
They also, I know they just developed Biomass-3. I don't know if those maps are available yet, but it may be worth noting.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some newer properties that are coming online that aren't reflected in here.
Yeah.
Might be helpful for this group with all of your brain power to just really look through these maps, like outside of this meeting, and mark up if anything is missing off of these, because the GIS could not, be as updated as,
It's on the other maps, but it's not on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chain of ponds, above north of Route 6 where it says 237, sort of east of the word Barnstable. Then you see there's a 237. Keep going north. There's a chain of right there. So there's a chain of ponds from 224 to 237, right, Christine? As you know, where camp is and where Greeno
Yeah.
is.
Dennis
Like, there's a
Pond,
chain of
Muddy
ponds that
Pond,
just
Little
literally
Greeno
disappear.
Pond, Greeno Pond.
Yeah, they're just disappeared off this map.
Yeah.
And is that what you're talking about? Because that's what
Right.
came to my Me.
That's right, yeah. It's basically along where the railroad tracks is, it's.
Yeah, there's like 4 ponds in a row that
There's
show up on all the
5,
other.
6, 7 ponds there.
I think it's the transparency of the color too,
Yeah.
that makes it
Yeah.
difficult. Right. Good point.
The ones after ambulance properties.
And so moving into site opportunities, the next couple slides are photos and a couple of thoughts based on our first site assessment. So a couple of things that
We
there's
identify where-
Sailing center.
Where?
That's a sailing.
No,
center.
that's Sandy Pond.
This, no, she said this one.
Oh,
This
that one.
That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
sailing center.
Maybe if we could identify where we are in the pictures, that would be helpful. Are these based on the site visits? Is that what you said?
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, so what we were thinking of doing is pulling out a few locations. And we haven't done all the site assessments yet. Our next day that we're doing is Monday. But we just extracted a few. We were thinking rather than focusing location, we were going to focus more on theme, because we were noticing there's certain themes that carry over from location to location. So in Sandy Pond, we noticed it particularly acutely that like you have a court that's within a lawn panel and parking, but there's no way to get from parking accessibly to that. The only place where there is the dog park. That's, the newest feature, I assume. So it just like the disconnection between places was very apparent there. And it's not solely at Sandy Pond. So while we're reference it, it's just an example of a theme that's running through other locations. Lauren?
And so another theme is the opportunity to provide accessible connections to water. There were a lot of visual connections and a couple instances where there were stairs to get to the water, but there's an opportunity, we thought, to provide an accessible path.
That's Lex.
Yeah, Lex.
Can we go back to Flex Pond there? You asked for opportunities to accessible connection. If you look in the background there, there's a handicap accessible ramp there. Is there something that we can do for the wheelchair to get down there? I mean, it's great once the wheelchair's down there, but it is kind of lumpy getting. So I'm wondering if you should tack that into the accessible of the
interesting.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And
It's
Lauren,
just-
I wonder if we can have, I wonder if we have a photo that's a little bit more zoomed out, like from up above, because this is a little bit tight. View.
Not during camp.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, we were just asking about when I could go swimming at Flax Pound, and the answer is not during camp hours.
All right.
And
So
then
we might rejigger some of these after Monday. And Kathy, I guess we're not meeting before before the open house, so we'll just do that with you.
Sounds
via
good.
email.
So are all of these opportunities accessibility related, or are there other opportunities that you identified during the site visits?
Well, there's one right here about upgrading playground equipment. So nice segue.
This one, what's this
I mean,
one?
I think upgrading would be a
Peter
theme
Homer?
across where you just showed as well.
What's that?
Upgrading would be a theme where you just showed as well, like all that stuff at Flax and Sandy Pond is all gonna be, in the
Upgraded,
plan to be upgrading because it's so very old,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, this section of
It's
the
falling
campus,
apart.
very, yeah, that's
So,
rough.
yeah.
Rough, it's
Yeah.
rough.
So this is Peter Homer Park?
Yeah. Yeah, so at Peter Homer, there are paths to certain locations, like to the back swing or like to the transfer to get onto the play equipment. But the surfacing, like there's curbing around and then the mulch surfacing actually sits lower. So it needs to be topped off. It's hard for maintenance crews to just be on top of that all the time. So if there's an opportunity to surface, like strategically do fixed port and place surfacing, I think this is a good candidate. But this equipment is fairly old. It seemed to us that it was a fairly old set of equipment. So if it could be upgraded, that would be, and upgrade the surfacing at the same time, that would be great.
Ellie said her son used to play on it, so.
And he's 30. He's gonna be 30, so.
It is on the old side.
When you look at it, like the carousel's awesome. So that's great. It's just the bigger structures. And they don't look so bad when you look at them from afar, but then when you start to look at the connections and the bolts and pieces of material are missing from steps and such, it needs some love. All right, so we might consolidate or add to this section with some other thoughts following Monday.
So lastly, we'll touch upon next steps. And here we'll say visit at the tables and segue into the public comment period. We've listed out the tables. We'll have to update the QR code. We've consolidated it into one QR.
So can I ask, I mean, are these questions going to be asked of people who are hybrid to say, we're going to get more details on these at the tables, but do you have any comments on, and then maybe we detail this out a tiny bit more? I mean, I don't think we can go through every single question that you had at the tables per se, but just otherwise, how are we soliciting any input from the people who are hybrid? What are the questions we're asking them?
I think we can talk about that since that was a change that we just decided today. So we could talk about, I guess the first thing is like, do we want to switch this slide so that we talk about the format for tonight, but then end the slide deck with next steps, and we could have a prompt on this slide that has like 2 or 3 questions that folks for hybrid can answer if they want to chime in. But I don't know if we want to do more than that. Like we could do like a Slido voting that is a little bit technology heavy for folks who are a little tech challenged. That might be hard, but maybe we could just open up the floor for a half an hour to just collect general feedback and have a few prompts on the slide to focus that.
I think you need the prompts, otherwise you may not get what you're looking for. So I think switching it up might make some sense, but I think the prompts should somehow reflect a little bit like, are you concerned about accessibility? I mean, do you have issues? So people that's a great first, question, or not first question, but a clear question for people. And then, the other one, maybe you ask, with recreations, do you feel that like we're missing any needs or programming that you think that we should be adding? So just a quick prompt under each one of those to maybe it's like one or question that we think is the key one under each one to see if we can get some input from the public.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to do it. You could have one pulled per, and then when we go through this goals, we could just highlight the one that we like, that we want to pull up into the slide deck. Does that make sense?
I think that sounds great.
Yeah.
Like last night, the station app, we got nothing from the online people, but we gave them the opportunity to offer their input if they wanted to. So I feel like if you're tuning in, you might want to do that.
I agree, Kathy. I think if there had been a specific question that you might have gotten more interaction from the virtual attendees.
Would their response be, we would let them speak, or would they
Yeah.
write in the chat?
Speak, no chat.
Okay, no chat.
And Kathy, do you have like an intro slide that talks about how to engage in the virtual meetings? We can supply you with one, but if you have like one developed from the town
Yeah,
that you'd like to use, like this
the
is how
town
you
doesn't-
call in, this is how you raise your hand, like in the
We
Zoom
don't have a
format.
slide. Most of ours have been our committees, and they read something or they read something at the beginning of the meeting that would help the public understand. But yeah, I mean, you must have some standard ones from all the presentations you did. So, but that would be great to insert something in. We're all Zoom experts now. Sometimes
Speak for
forget, you
yourself.
need to remind.
I still struggle through it.
Okay, yeah, that's no trouble.
I'd like to discuss some of the assignments.
We're gonna talk about that next.
So are there any
Like-
general comments on the slides or anything we feel like we're missing? Then we'll move on to goals and questions after that. Good.
I think we're good.
Okay. So the next section in the packet is about starting to get at the logistics of the meeting. It's really draft, so we took a stab at some table assignments and questions and goals. So really, we love everybody's knowledge on this one. So we assigned like a person from the town and a person from the ad hoc committee per table as facilitators. So if you feel like your table assignment is incorrect, please raise your hand. These were really just a first
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, Cassie,
Yep.
I have a problem. I have an open space. I have nothing to do with the recreational parks. I only work with the conservation lands and perhaps some passive parks. So that would be more for number 4, topic 4, not topic 3.
Okay,
You know, I've been working on, I have one project for 5 years. I have another project for 13 years. I reach out to privately owned properties to try and, assess them into the town inventory, but they would all be conservation lands.
So you 4 too.
Probably still like for environmental protection.
Well, 2 is about.
Well, see, it's
your
opportunity for
preference?
future protection is what
Okay.
I'm looking
Okay.
at. Yeah.
I missed that. So you'd like to be
Well,
land
both
use
of
and
them.
environmental protection?
2 and 4, is what I'm involved in, not in recreational parks,
So which would be your preference for table? The land, environmental protection or conservation lands?
They're both the same thing,
Yeah.
Either one,
Okay, is there anyone in either of those assigned to either of those tables that would be willing to switch to current facilities and amenities? I just want to make sure we have an equal number of facilitators per table.
But there's not gonna be even.
No.
I'm happy to switch if that makes someone happy.
it doesn't matter.
Well, then you'd have two town employees on one, I guess it doesn't matter. And one representative. I guess that doesn't matter.
Will and I have been working on one for
It's nice
13
to have.
years.
But again, I'm happy to move somewhere because Christine has certainly been a lot more active than I have in some ways. So in a lot of ways. So I'm happy. Please put me wherever you think I should go.
Okay.
Or we can work together.
Of course, I just
Not
meant,
to say that you have to stay at that table the whole time either, but
sure.
we have like an hour of time that we'll be hanging out. And if you two are tired of being at the table, you can just move over.
If we could put those two tables near each other.
Yeah, that would make
That would make
sense.
more sense, I think. Put 2 and 4 next to each other.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments or thoughts on where you've been placed initially?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So this is really where then we might not get through it all at this in this moment, but for each section, we've started to identify some goals of what we hope to get out of collecting feedback from people. We've included some question prompts, and this isn't to say that, like, I guess these are to be used if you feel like you're having a hard time collecting input from people, or you want to direct where the conversation is going with people who are coming to your table. You don't have to use them per se, but it's just a good framework. And then we are starting at the bottom of each of these table topics. Lauren and I are starting to think about what are the right things to have at the table, like what boards and which materials. So for this one, for recreational needs and programming, since this is more thinking ahead about what could be possible, we were thinking about having a visual preference board. So that essentially means, like, we'll pick out from the survey questions some of a smattering of items that we talked about, like pickleball courts or more basketball courts or more rectangular fields or trails or what have you. And we'll create a visual, like images of those things with titles, and people will be able to either add a dot on a board or cast their vote with chips in a jar, similar to some of the imagery that I shared with you a meeting or two ago. That's what we're thinking might be appropriate here, because it's very open-ended and we don't have mapping to support this sort of thing. So that was our thoughts for this one in particular.
You're not going to have just a giant map that might show where all the recreation facilities are, and just a general map so that people could put their dots, like I love sailing center in their program. And
we could do that. We have that sort of covered in current facilities and amenities.
Okay.
We would have the open space inventory map, and that one is more focused on where, like, what's going on currently and where people like or don't like, what they think is missing, what infrastructure isn't there that needs to be added, what have you.
So maybe, I'm sorry, maybe I missed the part about what are they voting on with the dots and the?
What what they feel like they want to see there at recreational facilities or open spaces that isn't currently represented. And we have a few survey questions related to this, so we would just be pulling from those. We list like 20 different options, and so we would just add photos to represent those, and then we call it a visual preference survey. It is just give people some fodder to start thinking about.
So that will be the board that people will put their stickers on, the different ideas that you have represented. Okay.
Are you
And
wanting
we'd
us
like to have a wild
Right.
card section too, which like you can write in something that isn't listed, because we might not have enough room to include the whole 20 box list.
Amy had a question.
Are you wanting us, so it's like for table materials, to like bring kind of what we do offer and stuff, so that, I mean, because I think what could come out of this too is, like, if we get a bunch of stuff and we already offer it, then what is that really? I mean, it tells us that people aren't finding out what we're offering, so it is telling us that, but are you wanting us to bring like kind of what we already offer to this table, or are we just trying to really just see what people know and gain from that?
Well, I would love so the placements at the tables were like, if you're the recreation director, we have you at the recreation table because that's your area of expertise. So having that background is super helpful. So Christine moving because she is more well-versed in environmental protection makes sense. Is that answering the question?
I think if you want to bring if you have like some small materials that outline your program, sure, bring it, do a little advertising.
Well, that's what I'm just thinking of that.
You know, and then if people are like
Well,
wondering, oh, if you're interested in rec programs, here
Well,
you
you
go.
offer that, I didn't.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Is my
you
point.
might as well
Okay.
disperse some information if possible, so,
And
yeah.
some of it
no
is
harm.
about prompts. Some of it's about prompts too. I think that the more you bring to the table, literally, the better it is to inspire some conversation, just like we're prompting people virtually. They may not be thinking of it until they interact with it. And that's an opportunity, Amy, to do that.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so for conservation lands and trails, we're hoping to understand the nuances around protection of conservation lands. And like, if we don't want to necessarily say, do you think that more is needed? Because that's like a prescribed, it's like you're asking a leading question. We want to keep the questions open-ended, but just gain information around like, how often are you hiking? Use the trail to show where people go. Like, where are your favorite trails? You know, just collect the data. And then that might help us say, people feel like they want more. I'm sure people will tell us they want more, or they want less, or they like certain areas, or they don't even know about other areas. That's the sort of information that we're trying to get at.
We have the trail maps, yeah. Do we have a lot of those printed out, Brittany?
To check, probably not many.
Yeah, they're pretty, I think the last time they were updated was like 45 years ago.
don't think they changed
a
them.
pile of them at our office.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be
we'll-
great
we'll
to have
update
those to hand out.
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of would like to be next to that table too, because we maintain the trails and
Well,
we're very
that's-
familiar
yeah.
with the user groups. We pulled out a lost hiker 2 days ago that was in diabetic emergency. So I mean, I want to be on the other one too, but.
Yeah, it's just moving the two tables
Yeah.
together, 2 and 4 together, so that.
Because
we
the
can-
environmental protection I need to be
Yeah.
on too, but.
Yeah, they
One
should,
and
yeah.
three should be.
they should be
Yeah.
close to each
So
other.
that would make most sense.
Still
Just move the
related,
two
yeah.
tables together. Instead of having them separated by the.
Do we need two separate tables, topics?
That's the thing, do we want to
Should we
combine
merge 'em?
anything,
Yeah.
or?
Should we merge it?
Or just have two, like,
Right.
two tables so that like,
Yeah.
it's spread
One,
out.
yeah.
But
Right.
just that way you guys can float, like 1 and 3 can float.
One table
2
might be
more.
too small to have the crowd come around, so
Yeah,
I
well,
think
you
maybe
put the two
spreading it
tables
out.
Together.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Sounds good.
And Kathy did send us the floor plan, and we'll be in town on Monday, so we might just swing by and take
Yeah.
a look, and like, that'll help the next step of what we want to do, which is like, how are tables oriented? And actually, Kathy, this is a logistics question for you, but we want to understand what you have. Like,
Yep.
it would be great if we didn't have to bring tables with us, so.
No, you don't. We can have, there's a dais that no one would be sitting at, but we have the projector, we have we have the computer to set it up and have the screen in the very front and have people facing with chairs that way. And then in the front, we've been able to very successfully put at least 2 tables there. We had 3 tables on Wednesday night, but and then there might be, I'm just thinking if you want to put tables together, and then in the hallway, we might be able to put 2 tables together. And then it kind of leaves the accessible one a little bit as the odd man out. But there is room B, which is a conference room that we can look at, and or maybe setting something up in the back of the room. I'm just concerned if we have too much in the back of the room, we won't have enough seating for people who want to come. So you had talked maybe a little bit about registration. Is that something that you think that we should be doing for the in-person part? Or we got a nice we did an extensive amount of advertising for the corridor study, and maybe you had like 25 people there and then 25 people remote. So it was a nice mix of half and half. But you never
Yeah,
know.
We've done just like a free Eventbrite registration just to get a head count in past meetings. I don't know what you've done. And it's not always like, people can still come, obviously, if they don't sign up, but it at least helps give some sense of what we might expect. It's helpful to have just a table to have a sign-in sheet, and then Lauren can be at that table and have our "What's your favorite place?" prompt.
Mhm.
And that doesn't have to be a massive table. It can just be like a small little, I don't know, like an end table type size, if we have anything like that. It sounds to me though that the 5 tables might be problematic, and that it feels like the space might better fit two and two and not sequester another table
Yeah.
in a different room.
Yeah.
So we could combine a table like the one we were talking about. Those are very similar. There's a few that feel kind of similar to me. That's one of them. And then like the current facilities and amenities, and then the programming, those feel and recreational needs, those are kind of part and parcel as well. So if we wanted to combine those, we could do that.
Yeah, like Amy's been saying, that put 1 and 3 together and 2 and 4 together. They're kind of married in a
Yes,
sense.
they're
They
intermingled.
are. And then, so then we could have 3 tables and 1 registration table.
But is that going to be enough room for people to stand around to participate? That's all.
Depends on the size of the tables.
Well, if we literally just
Exactly.
join 2 tables.
So that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, yeah, just,
Yeah, butter them together.
Yeah.
yeah, just push them together.
I'm wondering, can we ask the accessibility questions at the other tables? Like when you're talking about trails, can we ask about, do you have any accessibility issues with open spaces? Or, and then we're talking about different recreation facilities, are you leaving, we could ask those questions at the same time, and the different, instead of it being a separate accessible only, we've been integrating the accessible questions within the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everything should have an accessibility question.
Right.
Right.
Versus it being isolated as to one question on its own. That way we can have 2 and we can have 2 big tables in the front of the hearing room, and then 2 bigger tables out in the hallway.
Right.
We may have to put them up against the wall and then pull them out when we're ready to have them,
yeah.
but I think there'll be plenty of room there. Is that okay? Does that make sense?
Well, the only thing I'm thinking about is, will it be a duplication, like if somebody goes to one table to the next table, and they,
It's different areas, though. You'd be asking about, do you have any accessibility issues like with the programs or with the
Okay, that-
facilities
water,
for recreation?
that makes,
Right.
yeah, that
right.
makes sense. Now,
For the
you know,
parks.
But, do
Also-
we,
But we need to be sure that we have those question prompts in there, or
but who's gonna ask them? Do we need like someone who's well versed in accessibility at every table? Do we have only one of you?
No, I was thinking,
Yeah.
I mean, this is not gonna be, but I was thinking like if we made a flyer. See, I made a flyer,
Uh-huh.
okay? And that when people come to the table.
Yeah.
It tells what we do, sort of, and then also I'm asking for members, because that's membership, because it's kind of like hard. I need more
Right.
members.
is this for the Disability Commission? What is this?
This is for the Disability
Okay.
Commission, but I could turn it into whatever. And also, do we have signs, big enough signs above the table or somewhere so people can be directed?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're planning to make large signs that have the name of the table that will post up high. That's part of the reason why I want to swing by on Monday, is to like see those like nuances of logistics, like where are we going to post our signs and how are tables going to be in the room? Yeah, those sorts of things.
What time do you think you'll be coming by, Cassie?
Well, we were planning, it was taking about 45 minutes at each location the other day. And we're gonna start at 9. So we could either come ahead of time if the if town hall is open, or we could go around lunchtime.
Okay, okay. There's some meetings in that room in later in the day. That's the only reason I mentioned it.
Okay.
But yeah, either way,
Okay. So is the sentiment that we'll disperse the accessibility table, and then we'll keep the other tables, or do we want to do a combination of environmental protection, conservation? Even if it's physically two tables mushed together, we can still have, and I just one note about the people like congregating around the table. In my experience, it hasn't been like, I mean, right at the beginning, likely right after things open, it'll be busy, but then people will start to filter around or they'll start to take off and it starts to get a little bit more manageable.
great.
Yeah, I mean, what's going on in this room, I think we're all pretty agreeing that we should really only need two tables, recreation
The large.
and conservation and environmental protection. Encompassing those both. Right?
Yeah,
Two big tables.
yeah, two tables joined together, like when you go to a restaurant and you got 10 people with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
So
the
it could be
recreational and the
conservation
passive are
and
completely different.
yeah,
and
yeah.
Recreation and programming and facilities.
Or at least near each other, like, you know, if you have. So you like, basically the two people could swap from one table to another. You could, I could overhear something they're asking you and. You know,
Oh, I don't know. You can answer
Yeah.
that.
So
I'll be doing that a lot.
I'm right back at you.
So we'll essentially be having two tables pushed together, so it's not that different than having, you're still gonna have 5 tables, is that what we're
Yeah.
saying? So we're gonna have a separate accessibility.
Well, no, I think we talked
We
about
talk-
integrating
are we gonna do-
accessibility,
okay.
so we'll have 4 tables if
Yeah.
you want to physically say there's 4 stuff, but.
Yep.
But
Two-
1 and
two
3
main
will be
topics.
near or touching,
Yeah.
2 and 4
Yeah,
will be near or
that's easy.
touching.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, let's do 8 real small ones.
Okay, so as we look through the goals and questions per table, is anything popping out to discuss in this forum? We were hoping to make use of the maps that were produced as the visuals per table. So we were pulling out the appropriate ones per table, I think with the exception of the one that I explained about the visual preference survey. There, like in current facilities and amenities, we were thinking, of course, the open space inventory map, and then just having, and we could probably have this on every table, but
Yeah.
just a write-in card that allows somebody who may not want to say their comment, just write in a comment and have, you know, a little drop area for that. And then there are, you know, obvious connections between mapping and tables. So for land use and environmental protection, obviously we'd want the zoning map, core habitats, critical natural landscape, and then the land use map as well. And then we're thinking for the land use map, there's a historic boundaries map that is created for the OSRP. We can pop those boundaries onto the land use map instead of replicating that one. So there might be some combining that happens on these maps for this meeting.
It would be good to have like a lot of information and without it being too busy on the one plan. So not just how does zoning line up with floodplain and wetlands and in the core habitat and the historic. So I'm just thinking that we're not going to have a lot of room for 3 maps or whatever. We need to try and combine them as much as possible.
But not make them so busy. You can't read
Agreed. 1,000%.
We can
Yeah,
take a peek
yeah,
at
maybe, yeah.
simplifying them.
Can I ask one question about when you're asking what kinds of community services and features are needed in town? What specifically are you asking? I know you don't want to lead, but what is the, like, housing needs, or what's the question there?
Yeah, struggling with that one a little bit. I guess I'm just not trying to ask the question of, do we need more protected open space? It's like, how do you ask the question of like, what are the different land uses that are weighed against like protecting open space? What are the
Right.
other needs in town? So if there's a better way to say that, by all means.
I just want to be clear that that's kind of, I thought that's what you were kind of going. So are there competing needs in town? I guess is kind of what you're asking.
Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go.
I have actually to piggyback on that, and it's just something that's come up in multiple meetings I've been in this week. But I don't know if I'm sure you guys are aware of it, but I don't know if it's been addressed here, but the environmental justice issue, how it pertains to open space, because again, permitting for dredging and different meetings I've been in this week, it's become a hot topic.
Mm. That's an excellent question, because
Yeah.
we've run into that as well. You'd like to think it's a positive thing in an environmental justice area to have more open space, more recreational facilities.
Yeah.
I think the concept is not putting them all outside of those areas, whether we want to more evenly disperse our facilities, around town, or whether people are happy with
Right.
that.
Give everybody an opportunity to
Participate.
use and to be able to understand how to use our areas.
Like, how close do you live? Like, where do you go to enjoy your open spaces? I don't know. Like, I don't know what the question is around this, I guess.
It's I think maybe.
Do you have immediate access?
It's about,
to the
I think,
trails?
but you need to know where they live.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to some of these projects where we might look to improve or create a new facility, it's gonna be a permitting issue. It's gonna be just like, does it fall under MIPA? Is it an environmental justice area? Like it's something that's coming down the road, and I just wondered if you guys were privy to it at all. And maybe it's not applicable to this, but I just threw it out.
I don't think
there.
it's a question per se, but I think
Yeah.
it does impact
Use.
any project and uses, even
Right.
if it's a positive thing, like the Riverwalk Park.
Right.
That's in an environmental justice area. The parks that we're working on in West Yarmouth, that's now in an environmental justice area.
Right.
So it just adds another complicated layer to permitting, because if you need an ENF through MIPA because you're getting a state permit,
Right.
that's an automatic EIR if you're in an environmental justice area, which is an automatic DRI with the Cape Cod Commission.
Exactly.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Huge difference. So I don't think it's necessarily a question, but I think it's an interesting thing I mean, you have the environmental justice map that goes into the open space and rec plan. Maybe we talk a little bit about that in the plan near that map. And I don't think it's a question per se. Nobody will know.
Yeah.
They won't know if they're in one or.
Yeah, exactly. It just for our.
Yeah, I think you want the map in the open space and rec plan, not necessarily on any of the mapping. I think it's too confusing to ask people. But his point is just that there's a lot more environmental permitting impacts related to projects now in environmental justice areas. So when we have the map, I think there's a required environmental justice map in the open space. I know we have one in our existing one. We should just talk about it in a little bit more detail in the open space and rec plan.
Well, we may find that we prioritize certain projects or project areas, and those happen to fall within environmental justice areas. And then we know that the permitting challenges might come sooner because those are the priority projects, say, out of the, like, it might just become a recommendation out of the plan.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on this?
So are you going to combine the questions Or are we just gonna literally have 1 and 3 tables next to each other, and the people who are at the one table will ask those questions and emphasize those goals, and then the other people, and then people can kind of switch? Or are we combining them, and all staff will be asking the same questions, prompt questions if need be?
I was thinking of keeping the questions focused per table and give everybody all that, like, they'll all get, everybody will
Yeah.
get this sheet as reference. And if you're switching tables and if you're talking about a topic, because undoubtedly somebody will come over to a table and be talking about a topic from a different table. And that's totally fine. It's just, these are just providing a framework. So I don't know if we necessarily need to like go through the exercise of switching this around. I think they're just as reference.
I would agree. I would agree. So how are we keeping track of the comments that get made? I mean, are we writing them on stickies and sticking them on, or are we just keeping a track of it on a notepad? I mean, how are we all keeping track of? Because we're all going to have here only the conversations that we're talking to people. So each of us will have our own list of comments, I would think.
Yeah.
So we're just going to each keep track of it, and then we'll be submitting them to you guys at the end. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, that's fine. I like to just be writing stickies and plopping them on a map, and then like if you want to take notes, if that's easier for you, that's fine. But
However
at
you
the
want to do
time,
it.
we'll just take photos of everything, and so it's documented, and then
Okay.
we'll crunch the data quote at the end, or after the meeting.
Okay. So we all just need to be participants in keeping records of somehow either the sticky notes or keeping track of written notes that can be given to them.
My office is plastered with sticky notes if you've ever seen it, so just right up my alley.
Every table will be well stocked with pens and markers and all
Perfect.
sorts of materials. So hopefully it's just, you're actually having people write their comments if they have like draw your trail, that sort of thing. And you can be the facilitator. But if you feel like there are nuggets or themes that you're starting to collect in your brain, marking those down would be helpful.
Great.
All right. And this can be a living document. So if folks marinate with this and they have things that they want to add, then we can update this closer to the meeting. So the next set of things were the maps that we went through in the slide deck. Up to you and Will and the group if we want to go through these. I'm not sure we need to personally.
I would just say if there's some glaring points, like big flashing things, looks like Christine has her hand up. No?
I just want, on your maps, the railroad only goes as far as the dump. And east of that point, it's the rail trail. So
East
you
of
might want to
Station, yeah.
change your code.
East of Station Avenue. That's the Cape Cod Rail Trail now. It's not a railroad track.
Yeah. The railroad stops at Station Avenue.
GIS does still show it. But you're right. We've made some lovely changes there.
And again, on figure X, the 7 ponds are missing up by the railroad.
Okay. Yeah, we'll pick that up as well. Okay. Lauren, do you happen to have the updated flyer to share?
I do. I can bring it up.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing then. We just have a slightly updated version then that's in the packet.
So do we want to RSVP, I guess is the only thing. So we're going to start the meeting. You've changed it to 6. Everyone here has a copy. Unfortunately, I don't think Will does.
What?
February 8th. There you go. So now that we know that we're starting the meeting at 6, that's when the the meeting for everybody would start, that's good to know. And I can get something on the town website that clarifies this and get the word out. But you say, please RSVP on Even Bright. So is that something that we want to do? Should we say, just make it clear that you don't have to RSVP, but, please RSVP.
Encouraged.
Right. Yes, there you go.
That's,
RSVP,
yep.
encouraged to RSVP. And that's, that's.
And also Kathy, I'm not sure what you think I'm missing because I did pick up the packet in the bucket.
This came last night, this particular one. It's been updated.
Oh,
a
I
little
see,
bit
I
from the
see. I can
bucket.
see the small updates. Okay, no worries.
Yeah, it's very small.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
So you'll add a link into that, Lauren? And then,
Yes.
okay,
I guess I would just ask all the members of this group to try to show up at 5:30 or 5:45. Please don't roll in at 6. Obviously, life happens, but to the extent that we can be there ready to go, that just makes the best use of everybody's time.
So Wes and Sampson would like to get there an hour early to set up. So because we'll have tons of easels and materials
Okay.
to set up on several tables.
And if
And
some
then-
folks want to come at 5, we will.
I agree, Will. If folks want to get there half an hour early to get prepared 15 minutes early, that would be helpful, just so you're not.
I just want to say as a preview, I'm extremely conscious of how we use other people's time and how other people take our time. And so my intention, if I'm permitted to by this group, is to start at 6 o'clock. It's not 6 o'clock and then we schmai around for 15 minutes and then start at 6:15. I just think we should be respectful of what everybody's got going on to conspire to get this many people from this many places in the same place at the same time, including our virtual friends. So I'm just saying it with peace and love. We are going to start at 6. And I hope that's,
At 5, and while we're setting up, everybody can have a slice.
Bill, we'll hold you to that. Thank you. Comes right out of your budget. We appreciate it.
he's now the director. He's got
can do
the
whatever you
power.
I was going to say pizza receipt. Who cares? All right.
Nate, are you substituting for Amanda from now on? Are you participating in the meeting or?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I'm substituting for Amanda at least today. And I'm happy to participate, if that makes sense. I've been at DPW engineering for a month, so nowhere near as knowledgeable as Amanda, but I'm happy to help out.
And Nate, what is your title and what department within the department do you work in?
So Yarmouth DPW engineering.
Right.
I'm the title is civil engineer.
Cool. Thank you. That's very helpful.
I'm very happy Nate joined us. It's a little more horsepower in engineering, which is much needed. So they got very, very busy schedules.
Definitely hope to get a few things done. Yep.
Kathy, before we talk about site visits, do we want to talk about?
Oh, I'm just that was just a general landing page language that I was
Okay.
coming up with. I'm gonna have to change it based on the conversations
Of
that we've had
course.
today. And then I'll get Bruce Barrow to put that up on the town website, and then I'll start my advertising once I have that, and then I can link people. And we'll keep updating that as we go along in the projects, just like we did with the visioning page, so that everyone can keep track of that. And eventually, we'll have the PowerPoint on there and all those things so people can get more information.
Before we move on to site visits, does anybody have any input onto this landing page? No? Okay, here we go. So is there anything we missed, Cassie or Kathy, about February 8th? Of course, all the things we wish we had thought of, we don't know what they are yet, but I think that was pretty comprehensive, yes?
I'm happy. I think that we got a
Good.
good plan in place, and
Yeah.
I'll work with Cassie and Lauren to finalize some stuff, and they'll
Okay.
come and we'll figure out how we're gonna set up the rooms and everything. So I think we're in good shape.
Okay, the only thing left is appropriate prayers and sacrifices to the weather gods. Other than that, it feels like we're ready. Okay, let's talk about site visits. Who wants to lead that discussion?
I can. I'll just share what our previous day was and what we have coming on. So we went to several locations that you saw in the photos. Sandy Pond and Peter Homer, Flax Pond, the sailing club. I believe it was it
playground.
5 locations?
The Route 6A playground.
Yes, that was the first one. As I mentioned before, it was about 45 minutes. Lauren's doing one of the evaluations and I'm doing the other, and some of the questions are more intensive than others. So we're getting through it. Christine was a trooper through most of it with us and just hung out and provided some good context. And it was especially helpful to really hear about the history of the place. Ellie was great with that too. And really give some context to these places and how they are operated and programmed and used currently, and some of the nuances that we wouldn't have necessarily known on our own. Our focus on Monday is conservation areas. I don't actually have the map up. And Lauren, if you're quick, maybe we can get that up. But so we're doing the conservation trails on Monday. Fingers crossed for good weather, because we did get postponed.
There you go.
And we actually had wonderful weather the previous day we were there. And we're hoping to be done by sundown, about 4:30.
We could speed it up and drive you around and,
With the blue lights on?
well, no, in a little utility vehicle that fits through some of the trails.
Yeah. So we'll start at Grace Beach.
I'll see you Monday.
Yeah,
No,
I don't know, all, they must want to sit in the back. Bounce them right out.
So Monday we'll start at Grace Beach. You could, if you wanted to, do a little math and figure out where we'll be when. Like if you didn't want to come for the whole day, but if you wanted to pop in for a certain one, you could safely assume that we'll get to Grace Beach, Packet Landing, and Smuggler's Beach in the morning, like 9, 10, and 11. We're going to break for lunch around noon to 1, and we'll be back at it in the afternoon for, and I don't want to mispronounce the name here, but the next one, number 4,
Cirilla.
Cirilla. At 1, Horse Pond, 2 p.m.-ish, and then end with Baxter Mill, 3 p.m.-ish. And then we'll try to fit in our town hall visit maybe around lunchtime. So our lunch is going to be a quick grab. So I had a few yeses of folks who were joining. I know our conservation ladies want to join for some of these or all of these.
Yeah,
It doesn't, you know.
We might hop out and do some other site visits during the day.
I'll try to be there like on pretty much all of those.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay. There's a bit of downtime, just for a warning for folks who weren't there, that it's great at the beginning and we'll do like a walkthrough with you. And then there's like the nuts and bolts of it, of actually filling out these evaluations and taking measurements and things that can be a little bit boring for those who are not doing it. So just full disclosure on that.
So what is your general plan for the places with trail systems like number 4, number 5? How are you going to complete your survey? Are you going to walk the trails, all of the trails, or just the beginning?
I think we'll use your guidance on and try to, or and just visually just try to get, we're not going to walk all the trails. So we're just going to try to get like a feel for the best, you know, of a smattering of those places and move on. I think that's too much to do all of them.
By my comment, although
Right.
tongue in cheek, that's what I meant. Like if you really, like it would take us 2 minutes to get you to the middle of Ray Sorella, 1 or 2 of you, and then back out to the parking lot. And so I was kind of serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna walk it, wear boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Should
all
take the
right.
lower loop. You just take the
If
lower-
that's truly an option, I think I don't know, that would be super helpful.
I mean,
We
it
could
it just, we could have it on a trailer. If we use it, we do, if we don't, we don't. But I'm kind of serious about, it's a good option.
Okay,
They at least need to look at the trailheads for each of those, and I don't know whether there's more than,
Well, I'm
One.
wondering, this really, you just take that quick path out of
Yeah.
the bog and.
Right,
But you're
right.
gonna need your boots.
Yeah.
Bring your boots after the rain, because that's a sloppy.
and those
trail.
boards are slippery too.
Yeah.
Horse Pond,
That's a
pretty
big one.
easy. Yeah, that is a big one. That's.
Is there anything for parking for Horse Pond beside what's on those few spaces on Higgins
That's
Croll?
usually where I park, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know of any other spaces for that.
Well, you can get in the back way off of West Yarmouth Road, across from the bogs, you can park
Okay.
there. That's
Just
how
on the
I
side
go
of the
out.
road?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
there's a lot of places that you can pull up on. the
So
side.
maybe that's a particular conservation area that doesn't have enough parking?
Horse Pond.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, just,
Yeah, because those are the only two places I know
Yeah.
that you can park.
And
Yeah,
the-
but just south of the police station is a lot. And I think, see a lot of people access it from
All
different
angles.
communities and.
They just
Because it's that
walk
large.
Yeah,
in. Most people just walk in.
Yeah.
And you can also access it from the bike trail going south of the.
yes, all the
yeah.
Golf
water
course.
department, land,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a huge trail system.
It
It's
is.
not
It's
Well,
really
they pick up
ours.
on
but
Homewood Road. you know,
Right.
and most people are just local and they
It
walk
is
the
right.
roads and.
It is.
right.
And I don't know whether there's anything else, in the Cirilla conservation area other than what's off Winslow Gray. Is there stuff at the bog side? Is there parking on the street on the bog
Well,
side?
it's a
Yeah.
long walk if you park on West Yarmouth Road where the bogs are, across the bogs and
Yeah.
into Race Run.
I'm trying to get an idea where people would park for that one. Besides the little pull off on the Winslow Gray is the only one I'm familiar with.
Yeah, that's-
You can park 6 to 10 cars
Okay.
at the entrance to Cerelia.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's plenty of parking.
I agree, that one's probably easy to park there at Winslow Gray, go in a little bit and
Mhm.
see the bogs, kind of get
Yep.
an idea and then come back. The
Yeah.
Horse Pond could go on for
I wanted to
forever.
point out to them the overlook of where the stream is. I would love to see some kind of a boardwalk overlook at that point.
At Race
'Cause I think
Run.
it's it's very pretty there.
Yeah, the
you know,
old herring run there, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
defunct, so.
Which would be, I took just a short circle. I mean,
Yeah.
a bog is a bog to walk around. you
Yeah.
know, But
Yeah,
All right.
we shall adventure.
Yeah, the Horse Pond one is kind of, I mean, you can get in there, it's sort of short to get to the pond and then
Mhm.
back.
Yeah.
And not go all the way
Yeah.
around. That's.
yeah.
But even the boardwalks are narrow. There's 2 planks,
Yeah.
whatever it is. you know.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we're set for Monday and the weather gods seem to cooperate, but it's Cape Cod, so who knows? Check on Sunday night. All right, next on the agenda, minutes from January 13th. I hope you've all had a chance to review them. Thank you, Kathy, for putting them together.
Thank you to Lauren.
Like I said, thank you to Lauren.
And noting that Lauren has to hop off at 10:30, so, but I'll be
Okay.
hanging on.
All right, thank you, Lauren, for
Thanks,
everything.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Would
Like to make a
anyone like to
motion?
make a motion for the minutes?
Make a motion, we accept the minutes of January 13th, 2023.
Second,
Thank you. Motion, second, discussion. None discussion. Let's take a vote. Steve Szanski,
Aye.
Christine Marzigliano,
Aye.
Gail Charette,
I,
Ellie Lawrence,
aye.
Will Rubenstein, aye. Thank you. Last on the agenda has to do with upcoming meetings. Kathy,
Oh, sorry. I don't know whether, obviously the February 8th is the open space and rec, or I'm sorry, the open space and rec public meeting. I don't know whether we want to meet on January 10th, whether that's too soon. We're not,
February 10th,
I'm sorry,
February
February
10th.
10th. What did I say?
January.
January, interesting.
It's been a long enough month.
Or whether we just want to have meet on the 24th. So it's kind of something to talk about. I don't think we're going to really have been able to digest any of the information from the public meeting that quickly. So we might want to just wait until the 24th. Just some thoughts.
I see Cassie nodding her head. I see Nate nodding his head. I can't see all the heads at the table. What does everybody think about canceling February 10th?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not taking a vote. We're just canceling. There you go. One thing I would say is, because it did happen over last weekend with the canceling of the site visits from the previous week, is who is going to make the decision if we do have a weather situation? I would like to suggest that Kathy and I and Cassie be the 3-person emergency weather team, and let the 3 of us make the decision that we feel is in the best interest of everybody who's coming from locally as well as off Cape. What do you think of that, Kathy?
I think Cassie made the decision before. I'm comfortable because you guys are the ones who are gonna be out there in the bad weather along with everybody
Sorry,
else.
I'm talking specifically about February the 8th.
Oh, I'm
That's-
sorry.
I'm sorry to be unclear. I'm
Oh,
saying
well,
that we should, because respectfully,
I'm
what's
sorry.
going on off Cape is not always the same thing as what's going on Cape, as I
Yep.
think we found out, last week when we did cancel, which again, I totally respect the reasons to
Oh, I'm
cancel.
sorry, I misunderstood.
But as it turned out, it wasn't so bad down here. However, we don't know the whole story up there. So I'd like to suggest that Cassie, Will, and Kathy just talk amongst us girls, and we will tell you if there is a decision to be made. And as a caveat to that, no news is good news. So unless you hear from us, please arrive at either 5 or 5:15 or 5:30 on February 8th. I just wanted to talk this out loud so that there was no misunderstanding, because email is the devil and you cannot get the nuance if there is no pre-discussion. If emails just start flying, there's no context. So I wanted to provide some context while we're all together.
Good.
Well, that makes me wonder if we had not identified I guess technically snow date in this
Sure.
case for that meeting.
That's a good thought, Cassie. Kathy, what do you think? Do you have the schedule handy for that room?
I don't, but it would be the 22nd. It would be the earliest we could do it.
Okay. Well, there it is. And I think we should put it sort of in our minutes as well as on our radars.
So do you
Um,
want to be advertising that as a,
Well, I mean, I think it's a responsible thing to do as New Englanders in February. Yeah, I do.
What happens on Cape may not be what's happening off
Right.
Cape.
Well,
also.
right. And that's why it could be a situation where we're fine, but Cassie and team are like, we're not driving down there. Even though it's fine here. So I just think we have to allow for that. And I appreciate you, Cassie, thinking about that as well.
let me, I have to double check and make sure we can get the videographer to
Of course.
do the meeting for the hybrid, and then make sure the room's available before that.
Okay, thank you all for considering all of that. And again, I'll just say for February 8th, unless you hear otherwise via email, because that's going to be the easiest way to tell everybody. And Kathy, if you don't mind including Nate now in this email chain, so I'm not sure he's been in previous email chains, because Nate, as like everybody, needs more email in his life.
Oh, yeah.
And also make sure that Anthony is also included, please.
Yeah, he's already on board, so.
Just
but I'll add
double
Nate.
checking.
Yep,
So,
thank you.
so it looks
Kathy,
like,
let us know when you confirm that, because we should add it to the flyer and
Right.
public release.
I gotta wait to hear back from Dave, who does the video, see if he's available. I can confirm the room fairly quickly.
so it looks like, just to recap, we're canceling February 10. We're all on board for February 8, unless you hear otherwise. Monday, hopefully the weather will be lovely. Otherwise, you'll hear something from Cassie/Kathy. And we'll all wait to hear if February 22nd is a date we should put in pencil, digital pencil, or real pencil. And then February 24th is still a go, unless we are meeting on February 22nd, in which case we might be tired of each other and not want to meet again. You never know. So just prepare for that. Otherwise, if everything holds, we'll meet again after the 8th. The next meeting will be February 24. Any other
Okay.
discussion about upcoming meetings and such?
No,
Okay,
sir.
anything that we missed, please say no.
No.
All right. I would just say in general, I do hope, since this is our 4th meeting, I think, not to mention the site visits, I hope everybody feels like this is a good use of their time, that we are organized, that things are moving, that meetings are efficient. If you have any feedback about that and don't wish to share either in this public setting or otherwise, please know that I can be reached via email or phone. Kathy has my phone number. Or if you'd like to talk directly to Kathy, I'll let her speak for herself how she wants to get her feedback. But I just wanted to say, I feel like it's going well. But you know, I see nods. So I do want to say also thank you to everybody in this ad hoc way in this short amount of time, short being 6 to 8 months. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we have no new business. So I'd like a motion from someone to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Oh my.
Second.
Motion second, not allowing discussion. Vote, please. Here we go. Steve.
Aye.
Thank you, Ellie.
Aye.
Thank you, Christine.
Aye.
Thank you, Gail.
Hi.
Will, aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for what you're about to do on Monday, and we'll see you all in person on the 8th.